Okay, now it's recording. And like I said, I go through and edit. So if, you say, if, whatever, I'll go back through and edit that. But are you
Right?
ready to get started?
Let's do this.
All right. And I think, how long of an episode were you thinking? 30 minutes, 45? I mean, I've
I
done,
think 30. I mean,
that's what
I
I
think
was.
people, I think kind of just start zoning out after that. So I was thinking 30 would be great.
Hey PVMA, this is Michaela Buchel, your 2024-2025 webmaster, and I am joined today by Dr. Kemba Marshall. Dr. Kemba Marshall earned her Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree from the University of Florida College of Veterinary Medicine in 1999. After a one-year internship, she completed a residency in avian and exotic animal medicine at the University of Tennessee College of Veterinary Medicine. Dr. Marshall earned her master's in public health degree from the University of Iowa in 2018. Kemba spent 5 years in private emergency and lab animal medicine after completing her residency. Dr. Marshall has also held roles at PetSmart's corporate office as Director of Pet Quality and Education and the Land O'Lakes Purina Animal Nutrition Center as Director of Veterinary Services. She has authored peer-reviewed journal articles and served as guest editor for publications including the Journal of Avian Medicine and Surgery, 5-Minute Veterinary Clinics, and the Veterinary Clinics of North America. In 2020, Kemba founded Marshall Recruiting Consortium to address the lack of diversity in agriculture and animal health sciences. Today, Kemba splits her time between working in general practice and providing continuing education to practitioners to build thriving teams and drive businesses forward. Dr. Kemba Marshall is editor of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, available now from Wiley Publishing. And that's what we'll be talking about today. Dr. Kemba Marshall was the editor for this book, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Veterinary Medicine. So, Dr. Marshall, would you like to start by telling us about your book and what inspired you to create it?
I would love to. I was approached by Wiley Publishing. I've done some other work with them previously, and they were looking for a book regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion in veterinary medicine, and asked me if I would consider writing the book. And when I thought about the opportunity, of course, I was like, yes. And then I was like, wait, I've never done this before. How do I do this? And so I knew that what I wanted to do was really shine a light on all of the people that have been so tremendous, my friends, my journey, both personally and professionally. So my concept was, as a practicing veterinarian, I wanted something very, very practical, something that could live in treatment rooms, break rooms, so that folks can say, hey, I have 5 minutes, I can look at this. I have an hour, or I have a whole day that I can work through this. And so what I wanted is I wanted each chapter to stand on its own, but taken together, I wanted the whole book to really be practical information. And so each chapter starts with the what. So we define the word or the phrase, and then we do the so what. Why is this important to veterinary medicine? And then we conclude each chapter with the now what. Now that we've explained the word or the phrase, told you why it's significant in veterinary medicine, what is something that you can do tomorrow, no matter where your workplace is, to put this learning into practice?
Yeah, I thought I actually did read the book and I didn't quite know what to expect, especially since I haven't read a whole lot about DEI initiatives in vet med. What I've read is more rural sociology based. I just hadn't really quite read up on DEI initiatives in vet med specifically, so I didn't know what to expect. And I started reading it, and I think that it did a wonderful job of doing exactly what you just said. I found myself, each chapter was its own little entity, and they were each amazing, and I loved them. And I think some of my favorite parts were that they were super practical, is a great word that you used as well, but they would have scenarios or, maybe tips or toolkits that were listed at the end of each chapter. And that's something I know I've always struggled with. I am passionate about certain aspects of DEI specifically that I've dedicated my life's work to. And everybody says, well, you need to be more empathetic towards this or more empathetic towards that. And nobody's ever really provided a plan of action or say, hey, here's something you can do. And I've always struggled with that and thinking about, yes, I'm very passionate about this, but if I feel all alone in trying to figure out how to better this community and give back to these communities. And I've never seen a book actually give real life scenarios. And I thought that that was an amazing thing to do. Each person that wrote these chapters did a great job of going into depth from a standpoint of they're not assuming you know everything about the topic when they start the chapter. They, like you said, they define it and then they go into what it might look like, the current implications of it, and so on and so forth. And I thought it was a great read. I would like to say your book does an incredible job of defining and addressing buzzwords that often lack real world application, which is what I was just talking about. So, what do you
Yeah.
hope readers take away from it at the end of the read, or, even like you said, one day, one chapter? What do you hope readers take away from it?
Number one, I hope readers take away from it that veterinary medicine, in the veterinary oath, we are designed to be thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Number one, when we take that veterinary oath, whether you are a veterinarian or a licensed veterinary technician, the first line in that is that we solemnly swear to use our knowledge and skills to benefit society. So before we talk about animals, before we talk about pets, we talk about society, and that's the people that make up veterinary medicine. That is not only people that are going to be on your care team, but also owners and producers and pet parents. And so I want people to know that our profession is calling for this. It's what we have sworn to do. And then I also want people to know that they're not alone. Number one, if you want to learn more information, I try and offer a great resource that allows you to learn more information. And I want people to say, hey, I don't know if I understood that initially. I don't know if I agreed with that initially. I invite that. And what we want to do through that chapter is walk you through a different approach, right? And again, it's got to be practical because at the end of the day, it has to tie to what's in it for me. And I'm thinking about my clients, I'm thinking about technicians, I'm thinking about customer service representatives, everyone that make up the whole ecosystem of veterinary medicine. And I want people to understand there's number one, something that you can learn from every chapter. And number two, something that you can do right where you are as a pre-veterinary student, as a veterinarian, as a veterinary technician. There is something that you can do right now to move the profession forward. Because at the end of the day, our profession has to be sustained. There have to be young people and people in general who want to come into veterinary medicine. And I think that duty is on individuals who are currently in the veterinary system to say, how do we make sure it's sustainable for those who are coming behind us?
Yes, and like I've already said, I think it did a great job of that. One thing that I noticed is, I did read the book in a relatively quick amount of time, so I knew that I would be revisiting a lot of these chapters later on when I could really get a minute to dig deeper into it, think about it. They're almost like little think pieces if you let them be, and applying them to so many different scenarios, like you said, whether it's work in the community and practice, whatever that might be. So I think that that was an amazing aspect of it. And I'd like to talk about one quote that I pulled from the chapter that you wrote. I think it was Why You. And I thought that was a great chapter that I was not quite sure what to expect. And I was like, you, what are we going to be talking about here? I found the same thing with the intersectionality chapter. I was like, well, duh, that's kind of, are you just summing up the book? Like, I, I was not quite sure. And those ended up being my two favorite chapters. I thought that they were just wonderfully written. And I was gonna talk about and ask you about this quote that you had. It was, leadership is a choice, not a title. What advice do you have for young veterinarians who want to lead but don't see themselves as leaders yet?
That's so important. Number one, you're a leader. Veterinarians tend to be number one, very driven, very dedicated, not only in what we do professionally, but also what we do personally. So we are the Cub Scout leaders, we are the soccer moms, we are the yoga instructors, we are the running coaches. We're already doing those things. So leadership is just you saying, I'm going to raise my hand because I think that I could take this group forward. I think that I could help in some way. And I also want to be very, very clear for especially young people reading this. Once you make up in your mind, you say, I'm a leader. It doesn't matter your role. It doesn't matter if you're in veterinary medicine. It doesn't matter if it's a Saturday and you're chilling with your friends. Someone has to plan the dinner. Someone has to plan the movie that we're going to. Someone has to plan those family vacations. So once you say, I am a leader, then I think it's much more natural for you to step into those roles where there are times that we're going to have some challenging discussions. We have those challenging discussions in the treatment room. We have those challenging discussions when we're going over the history and we're, discussing, where does this dog or this cat live? Does the pet live inside? Does the pet live outside? Is it a barn cat? And is this cat's job very different from the cat who lives indoors? And I want people to understand that leadership is a choice, because no matter where you are, there is always something that you can do when you use your words to advocate for yourself, for animals, or for other individuals. That is when you assume leadership. And that's something that no one can take away from you. And when you have that knowledge that, yes, I'm a leader, yes, I have the right to say this, and I know that I can choose my words, choose my timing, and say it so that it's constructive and it's helpful, then that is what I think is the great antidote when you think about burnout and that isolation. And I don't feel like anyone listens to me. I don't feel like I belong. It's us raising our hands and saying, I'm going to advocate on behalf of myself, an animal, or another person, because I understand that I myself am a leader and no one can take that away from me. And I want young people especially to understand that and hold on to that.
I think that that's a great way to, you know, think about leadership in a different way. Because I know when I read that, one of the first, like I said, a lot of the quotes, chapters, the entire book, you could sit down and pull a million different scenarios and thoughts and whatever you wanted to about it. The first thing that I thought of when I read it was I'm dialed back into this undergrad, almost high school mindset. As a very involved person in both high school and college, I almost always have an officer or executive role in one of those organizations. And I know so many people that will join me in these roles, and they're doing it kind of for the title. And they're not really thinking about the responsibilities that it comes with, or if they do acknowledge those responsibilities, they don't give it their all. And I feel like that can still be applied once you leave veterinary school and undergraduate school. Like you said, this applies to really everything in life, who's going to plan dinner on Saturday, etc. I just struggle with people doing it for the resume. You hear that a lot in undergrad. It's like, oh, it'll look good on my resume. That's great, but do you want to better this club? Do you want to better this group of kids or people that you're around? And really give it your all. If it means not being an officer in anything and maybe just helping out, maybe that's what that looks like. If it means, taking one officer position in one club instead of multiple, if that's what you think you need to do. I think that that was what I first pulled from it. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized, hey, this is, multiple applications. So I thought that was super cool as well. And that was one of my favorite quotes from the book, as, like I said, somebody with lots of leadership experience and teams that I've worked.
Yeah, great point. And I do just want to lift up something that you said. So the process of getting into vet school is challenging. It was challenging when I did it. It's challenging, for those who are in the pre-veterinary medical association. But I want to just make sure that individuals know, when you say, oh, it'll look good on the resume, veterinary medicine is about passion, passion, passion. And if I say to you, like, what did you do as a leader in this role, in this club? And you just give me like the bare minimum. I organized the agenda. I set up the meeting invite, and then I took roll. Like, there's no passion. Like, there's nothing in that where you move the organization forward. And I want young people to understand, we're not looking for just words on a resume, a piece of paper. We're looking for what demonstrably is different because you yourself were in that role. Is there a new policy, a new procedure? Did you reach out to a new group? Like, what is different because you have been there? Because if you're truly a leader, it will look different before you arrive and it'll look different after you leave. And that's going to be so much more than simply it'll look good on the resume. So I really want people to take leadership seriously and understand that there's so much power that comes from saying, I sincerely believe that I can make a difference and I can make this better. And that's why I'm going to take this position.
Totally agree with that. I know that there's an immense difference between saying, oh, I was in this club and, I was secretary and I just kind of did my role. And I've had positions like that where I'm like, I didn't see a lot of room for growth or creativity in the position. So I kind of did my role, made sure I committed whatever I could to that team, and then, bid my time and left. But I also have had positions like this national position where the entire officer team, not just me, but we have put so much work and effort into genuinely changing the organization and the responsibilities of that officer team. We created this interview series that's been a wonderful addition to our roles and just outreach, outreach, outreach. And I think that there's just a huge noticeable difference when you're talking about your passion projects that might come with a, prestigious role or title, and those that you just kind of did. And I think that that's important for pre-veterinary students to hear.
Yeah,
And
especially
yeah,
because a lot of this goes into at some point, if you're doing this right, you're going to get that interview and you're going to be sitting in front of one or multiple individuals who are saying, tell me about yourself, tell me about this role. And you want to have something important to say. You don't simply want to say, hey, I was a part of this group and I was member number 2114. That's not telling me anything. That's not bringing to life what I think that you can add to the profession, right? So you have to get to that point where you're thinking more about, in my opinion, servant leadership. Because if you're in the veterinary space, we care for animals and the people that are connected with them. And therefore, everything that we do when we're putting it on that resume has to demonstrate that caring and that servant leadership. So I think that's incredibly important. So thank you for bringing that up.
yes, of course, that's something I love to talk about, and I just don't see a lot of people talking about it. So speaking of, applying things to a pre-veterinary aspect, I know we've talked about the use of this book can go just about anywhere you want it to. I could see this being brought to, I did FFA in high school. You could bring that into the classroom even in high school. These are all super real world, super just umbrella, but still specific enough to give you examples. How would you apply some of the specific lessons or ideas in this book to pre-veterinary spaces?
That's a great question. So when I think about pre-veterinary spaces, I think about several things. Number one, many of these individuals who are in the pre-vet club, you guys have already decided this is my path, this is what I'm going after, this is my passion that I'm going to pursue. And I think it's also very helpful to understand that you won't get any further than your network. So there's a reason that I wrote 3 of the chapters and 23 other authors or groups of authors wrote the additional chapters, because I've learned so much. And this is just a portion of my network. And I want the Pre-Veterinary Medical Association to understand the real power of a network and how it helps you, number one, understand different perspectives. Of course, meeting new people is always going to help you learn that. But then also through this pre-veterinary club, I think it really sets you up to say, if things go well and you do become a veterinarian, wonderful. You are well on your way. But even if it's not veterinary medicine, the things that are important in this book, compassion, empathy, meeting individuals where they are, a real sense of education that makes a difference is what I want people to take away from this, because there's so many things that you can do that are connected to animals, which may be very different than veterinary medicine. So I always tell people, if you walk into a Petco, a PetSmart, a Pet Supplies Plus, a neighborhood pet store, every single thing in that store someone created specifically for animals. So I also want pre-veterinary students to use this book as a way to really expand their thinking and their understanding about what is possible as a potential career field having to do with animals, even editing or authoring a book, right? I don't want individuals to say, if I'm not a veterinarian, then I've not succeeded. If I'm not a veterinarian, I don't know what to do. There's always something that you can do that will tie your love of animals, hopefully your desire to care and serve others, to something that still touches animals. So I wanted this book to really be very broad in its reach, to help people to continually say, I can think about this a different way and not only apply this book to any situation that I find myself in, but think more broadly about all of the careers. So there's a reason that there's an economist who wrote a chapter. There's a reason that we have veterinary social workers who wrote chapters in the book, because I really want you to understand there are so many careers that touch veterinary medicine that I wanted this book to even highlight those different types of careers and career approaches.
Yes, I thought that was another super interesting thing that I noticed as I was, reading through these chapters and looking at, oh, the authors up here. And I realized not all of them were veterinarians. Actually, a lot of them, like you said, where I saw, the justice chapter was from a lawyer, or I saw, what else am I thinking of? Just different, very different companies and careers represented in that you, like you said, still touch veterinary medicine. And that could be something that I see people really exploring during their gap year, or maybe I didn't get into vet school this year, maybe I'm waiting to apply, and then they find that that's where their true passion is. I always tell people, Gretel and I talked about this on the podcast as well. She had her year of yes, and we always say, explore your opportunities. You don't always have to do small animal clinic, or I'm going to go work with, a world-renowned theriogenologist over this summer, or else I'm never getting into vet school. Like I already mentioned, sometimes those passion projects are really what people like to talk about and see you pursue. So I think that
A
was
100%.
super
Yes.
cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there any other notes or highlights that you'd like to give about the book?
Definitely in terms of notes and highlights, I would not have been able to do it without all of my friends, all of my peers that said yes when I asked. And so I really hope that this also just shows the power of a really connected, thriving community of individuals who say all of us can contribute something. All of us can contribute something. And I think that's so important. It's why the book came to life the way it did. And it's really what gives me hope to say that this can really shine a light on really the sustainability of the veterinary profession, so that everyone sees themselves somewhere in the veterinary system, the veterinary ecosystem. So I'm really proud of this work, and I'm really excited to see what the world thinks about it. So thank you again so much for this incredible opportunity.
Yeah, of course. And did you want to give any more information on how to purchase when the print comes out?
Yes, absolutely. So I think we will be able to potentially drop a link, once this comes out, once this podcast comes out. But Wiley.com, you can certainly just search Kemba Marshall. You can also go to Amazon.com and search Kemba Marshall, and you will see this title come up. So yeah, please go buy it. Tell me what you think, and send me a review. Like I really wrote this hoping to start conversation so that individuals share with me their thoughts and their opinions on it. So please leave me a review.
Yes, of course. All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Dr. Marshall, for joining us today, and we would love to have you back on. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.